Hi there, I'm Camilo Escobar, JURIDAI founder. We explain the general principles of law regarding artificial intelligence to know how good AI exists, to let people know how rights and duties exist regarding artificial intelligence. So when the people know how general principles of law apply regarding AI, when people know how rights and duties exist, how are defined the general principles of law, what is defined in the general principles of law, what means each principles of law, what is defined in each principles of law, and definitively when people knows what is defined in the whole of the principles of law, they know how to make a good AI, how to make good AI, and properly how good AI exists. How is good AI? How good AI exists? How to comply with the law regarding AI. And today I'm going to explain the regulation, how is the regulation, how regulation exists regarding AI, or how is the regulation of artificial intelligence, how is artificial intelligence regulation, and what is determinant is to know or properly to be clear on the fact that the only way to regulate artificial intelligence in a valid way, in a good way, or the only means to regulate artificial intelligence, the only means that regulates AI, artificial intelligence, is the law, is the whole of what is defined in the law, is the whole of what is defined in the whole of the law, in the whole of law. So the whole of law defines the characteristics of rights and duties, defines how rights and duties exist, defines each part and the whole of the way of existence of rights and duties. So once we know how rights and duties exist, we know how to govern, how to regulate, how is the regulation, how is the governance regarding artificial intelligence. And the idea is to apply that regulation in a legally valid self-regulation way. I mean, through the legally valid self-regulatory way, through the legally valid self-regulation. Because it's the way to apply that regulation to fulfill what is defined in the regulation, in that regulation, in the law as a whole, in what is defined in the law. Is the way to apply the whole of what is defined in the law as a whole. Is the way to enjoy the rights and fulfill the duties regarding artificial intelligence. So the only regulation is the whole of what is defined in the law. This is the norm that regulates artificial intelligence because it's the whole that defines how rights and duties exist. So it's the whole that includes the rules and principles that define through which human being define that defines how rights and duties exist. Is the way that defines how rights and duties exist. So the law is the whole of the norm. The law is the whole of the norm of the whole of what is defined in it, of the whole of what is defined in the law. So the law is the norm created by the result of the union of each of the parts and the whole of what is defined in the rules and principles. And the principles are the way that clarify how rights and duties exist at a general level, and consequently are the way that clarify, are the way to clarify, are the way that clarifies, are the way in which human being clarifies how to comply with the rules. So the law is the whole of the norm, and that norm can only be fulfilled when there is the application of the whole of what is defined in the principles of the law, in the legal principles, and consequently, when there is the application of what is defined in the principles of law, in the general principles of law, in the law principles, in the legal principles, there is the application of the rules, of law, of the legal rules. Why? Because only possible, it is only possible to comply what is defined in the principles of law, to apply what is defined in the principles of law, to apply to what is defined in the principles of law, to apply the principles of law when there is the application of the rules, because the general principles of law indicate the way to comply with the law. So that indication includes the duty, or properly the must, to comply with all the rules that are necessary to comply to get the enjoyment of rights and fulfillment of duties. So when there is the fulfillment of the general principles of law, when there is the compliance of what is defined in the general principles of law, when there is the application of the legal principles, there is the application of the legal rules, of the rules of law. The application of the legal rules includes the application of the legal principles, and at the same time, the application of the legal principles includes, requires, need the application of the legal rules. So when there is the application of the legal rules, there is the application of the legal principles, and when there is the application of the legal principles, there is the application of the legal rules. So properly, it's about knowing and applying what is defined in the legal principles, and that includes the fulfillment of the legal rules. And when there is the compliance with the legal principles, at the same time, or properly, that means the compliance with the norm of the law, with the whole of the norm created by the whole of what is defined in the law as a whole, in the whole of law. So the regulation of artificial intelligence is the way in which the whole of the norm of law, is the way in which the law, in which the whole of what is defined in the law, in which the whole of law applies regarding artificial intelligence. And of course, there can exist specific norms related to artificial intelligence to specify the general elements defined in the general principles and general rules. But those specific norms are just part of law when there are ways that clarify how rights and duties exist. So something is a norm, is only a norm when it's something harmonical with what is defined in the general principles of law. Because something is a norm when it's a way that clarifies, when it's a way to clarify how rights and duties exist. So of course, there can exist specific rules, specific principles, and properly specific norms regarding AI, but those norms are only norms when are harmonical with the whole of the law, and properly, the only way to know how to comply with those specific regulations is by knowing and applying what is defined in the whole of law. That is, when there is the knowledge and the application, when there is clarity and the application of that clarity regarding what is defined in the whole of law, regarding the general principles of law, regarding what is defined in the whole of the general principles of law. So to know how to comply with the law regarding artificial intelligence, it's necessary to know and apply what is defined in the general principles of law. Thanks so much for your attention, and I invite you to www.juridai.co to know what we do and to know our legal education offers, our legal education products regarding the legal validity of artificial intelligence, regarding how good AI exists, and to know our blog. Thanks so much. Bye-bye. Take care.